Hi everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoy our shows, please like our videos and subscribe to our channel. And you can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Copenhagen, Denmark. It's the 14th of February 2019, and our guest today is a gentleman with a dark, sinister and controversial history. He claims to have been born into a multi-generational Satanic Illuminati family to become a trauma-based, mind-controlled Project Monarch slave. Jay Parker. Jay Parker, welcome to the show and thank you very much for joining us from Philadelphia.
I'm glad to be here.
Your story, your history, your life is deeply controversial and very shocking, and it may be very difficult for a lot of people to grasp or even to fathom what you actually went through as a child, being part of these horrific satanic rituals, being this Illuminati mind-controlled slave. And we really want to get into your history about what actually happened to you as a child. But please talk about the place you were born. You call the birthplace you were born at Arden in Delaware.
Well, I was born in Philadelphia. We didn't move to Arden until I was 3. I believe my father was arrested for pedophilia, and the government gave him an opportunity to move to the protected mind control village of Arden and sign me over and possibly my brother John to the Monarch mind control program under CIA oversight.
What did your father work as? How was he involved in the Illuminati?
Well, he was 9th generation. His mother and father were Illuminati. They were 8th generation. I was going to be 10th, but I rebelled. So they had to switch to slave programming. I have 2 brothers. One, I believe, James, became cult, and my brother John is deceased, and he did not become cult. He was destroyed in a blood ritual and never really regained his sanity.
You never knew what happened to your brothers?
Well, I haven't had any contact with my family in 19 years.
Really? Please talk about what actually happened before we go into talking about what occurred to you as a child. Why did you stop talking to your family?
Because they're dark occult. I accidentally was triggered by dating a witch who used my mother's primary mind control phrase. She opened the file of my satanic programming and didn't know what to do after that, because there's so many different ways a person is architecture in the subconscious is set up. There can be hollow mirrors, trees, many different things. It can be geometric, and she didn't know how to proceed. So it was around 2000, and we had one date. It didn't work out, and she opened my subconscious satanic ritual abuse file and walked away.
Was she arranged to do this?
Oh, no. She knew I was a monarch, And, you know, I traveled around in Illuminati business circles, being passed from one Illuminati businessman to another, basically working for pennies on the dollar.
For sex?
Oh, no, I was a contractor.
All right.
Carpenter, cabinet maker. Whatever you wanted to do in a building, I could get it done. For cheap. Or even free.
How come?
Depending on the hand sign you have.
Wow.
Depending on how much you want to work me over. But I was never a sex slave, and the sex slavery was the first 7 years of my life.
Yeah, so let's please get back to your very early history. How did all of this begin? This is a very horrendous story that you have to share. So please start from the beginning.
My mother told me in 1963 that 12% of America was generational mind-controlled dark occult. And when I said that to Zagami, Leo said, that's about right. Anywhere from 12 to 15% worldwide.
That is a lot of people. How can they keep that a secret? And how can that actually happen with such a large number?
It's called violence. I mean, simply, you kill a lot of people. So what I'm saying is this is manipulation that we've been going through. And this manipulation by the dark occult is in the programmable state. That's where people get brainwashed. That's where people get the sophistic system in their subconscious, and they go along to get along. Their individual creativity and intuition is destroyed by the fake religions and the indoctrination system of school. And we in the societies of Illuminati and other cults go through horrific physical and sexual torture in the programmable state in the first 6 years of life, 7 years, depending. But you have two brainwave patterns, and you're in a hypnagogic state. And this is according to Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Two men, you should know their information and read their books. They are part of what I consider the biggest consciousness revolution in 13,000 years. Along with EFT and other easy to do psychological and spiritual manipulating techniques, you can get into your subconscious and reprogram it. When you're in the programmable state and you're in the Illuminati cult, born into generational Satanism, or, you know, worship of Molech, of the Marquis of Hell, whatever deity they choose. But basically, you're looking at Molech worship. Molech is a big deal to them.
It's the owl, right?
Or the bull. It started as the bull, yes, in the age of Taurus. And they would have a large bull effigy in Canaan. And there would be pockets in the statue of the god where you could place an infant child, and there would be a fire lit in the center of the idol, and the children would be a burnt offering to Molech. And that kind of attitude, because of the human race being in shock and being told things that aren't true by the priest class, by the leadership. And so they became the mushroom people.
The mushroom people?
The mushroom people. They're kept in the dark and they're fed BS. Very simple.
So they use the owl also at Bohemian Grove in the woods up north in California, where the elite meet every year, right?
Those are your masters. Those are your controllers of the worldwide corporate satanic system.
Which is also called the New World Order?
Yes, yes. My mother and father told me in 1963 that the rank and file Illuminati were being thrown under the bus with the constitutionalists and the free people of the world. So generation after generation, these minion Satanists were told by the DuPonts, Rockefellers, Queen of England, obey us, and when we take over with our New World Order, you'll be princes, and we'll let you feed off of the cattle, the average people. Well, it was decided in the Council of 13 in 63 that the rank and file dark occult would be given the vaccinations, given the cancer viruses, given the GMO food, blah, 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 whatever you want to say about the eugenics program.
1963, when John F. Kennedy was killed?
Yes, as we watched the Kennedy funeral, my two brothers, my mother and father, my father said to my mother, "We did this," meaning the Illuminati.
He knew that?
Yes, he had gone to the head of the cult in Arden, Buzz Ware, who now has a village center named after him, a supposed reptilian shapeshifter.
Really?
And a pedophile murderer.
Wow.
I'm just saying my parents bemoaned the fact that they could not fully transform into a reptilian humanoid like Buzz Ware could.
They would have liked to have been able to do that?
Oh, absolutely.
Really? Now that sounds incredible. Did they actually talk about this, your parents?
Yes, they did. They said they don't have enough of the corruption genetically to do it.
How are you able to shapeshift? This is, of course, something that comes up a lot when we talk about alternative information in the world. David Icke, lots of people have talked about it over the years, but this is going back very far.
Well, yes, but if you look at the human brain, our primary brainstem is called the R complex, the reptilian complex. And that's where we have flight or fight modality. Then we have the limbic system with our emotions and feelings. And then we have our higher consciousness, which is the frontal lobe. And you go through electroshock, rape, drugging, torture, human sacrifice, animal sacrifice for 7 years. And by the time they are done with you, there's not much left.
But I mean, how can any parent do that to their child?
They're mind controlled.
They are also mind controlled.
Oh, absolutely. And they're possessed. When you go cult, you don't have to go cult if you grow up in a Illuminati family. They ask you when you come out of the programmable state, when you're 7 or 8, do you want to be a member of the cult? If you choose not to be a member, they will say that's fine with us. But you can do whatever you want in life, but you can never talk about who we are and what we do. How
can anybody at age 7 make that decision? And even after I've gone through such horrible experiences?
I would say it's not a fair choice because you've had the synaptic pathways of your brain totally warped and you're biochemically different than a normal human being because of the state of fear and terror that you've been subjected to for years in the programmable state. So it's, to me, it's not a fair question.
Certainly not. How can you know for sure, or how can you say that you were directly connected to the Illuminati? Are you related to one of those noble family bloodlines of the Illuminati that we hear a lot about?
This is one of the fallacies talking about the dark occult. There are 200,000 maybe bloodline in the world, royalty, high caste, industrialists, that bankers that go back to Venice and then go back to Phoenicia. David Icke writes excellent books, and his biggest secret, or one of his other 700-page books, will give you a good historical outline of the satanic cult coming out of Canaan, Phoenicia.
So how do you know that you were actually part of it?
How do I know that I was actually in the Illuminati?
Yes.
I would say the fact that my mother was a mind control expert for the DuPont family, that might be one thing. She destroyed the heir of the DuPont fortune, John DuPont, who died, I think, in 2013. There was a plot of other DuPonts that they wanted to mind control him to go crazy, and then they would go into court and try to seize his assets. My mother did use my father's deep hypnosis spinning device on John DuPont, whom she met by being a teacher at the exclusive pilot school. She would teach all the higher ups in the state of Delaware society, DuPonts, carpenters. Basically, if you were a millionaire and you were dark occult, you sent your children to the pilot school.
Which was in Delaware.
Well, Delaware is where the Pasteur family is, which of course are the French nobility. I mean, I don't know if you know that story, but the Dauphin moved to England, was switched with a sickly child, was known as Pasteur in his last name, and then moved to America in like the 1820s. And there are people that say that the Pasteur family has incredible power in America. And this is something that the 5 families that I hear rumored that are at the very top of the Illuminati power pyramid, they don't want people knowing that they have power or money or even their names. But Daniel Estlund knows a couple of them, and I think the Pasteurs are probably one family that's way up there.
And can you mention some of the other families as well?
Well, Fritz Springmeier has written an excellent book, Bloodlines of the Illuminati, and goes into the 12 families that make up the Council of 13 here in America. And that Council of 12, the 13th seat is for Satan. And you have to be a mover and shaker family to be on that council. And you decide what goes on. I mean, as John Kennedy's father, Joseph Kennedy, said, 50 people run America. And then he said, well, that's actually a high number. He was the ambassador to England during World War II. And he made a fortune in the crash of 29. So he was in the inner circle, Joseph Kennedy. But how do I know that I was raised in an Illuminati family? I was told that I was in an Illuminati family. My father, 9th generation. His father, 8th generation. My father's family joined the Illuminati in the 1720s in Enniskillen, Ireland, Northern Ireland.
So that was before 1776, when they were supposedly formed by Adam Weishaupt in Germany, right?
No. I mean, that's you'll hear that in the history books, but as Tolstoy said, history would be great if it were true. The Illuminati and the dark occult go back to Babylon, and my father called himself an Atlantean warlock more than one time. So Atlantis did start with the law of one and started with higher consciousness, but as they became wealthy, they became a mind-controlled society. And my mother said the genetics that the Atlanteans were doing was total Island of Dr. Moreau. Total Satanist chimera stuff. I tend to wonder if these comets and these asteroids and floods and pole shifts, if it's not the galaxy and the universe knocking down a dangerous and violent species, because you certainly don't want the kind of warmongering, child-killing people like who's ruling this world out in the galaxy to invade and hassle good people.
So how do we know that Atlantis and Lemuria actually existed? Of course, in official history, they claim that these are just fantasy, invented lands.
Well, of course. They claim that the sun is a fusion reaction with helium-3, even though it's an electric sun. They claim all sorts of things, like cannabis is a dangerous drug, even though the essential oil of cannabis indica will cure 95% of all cancer, even in the 4th stage. So these are killers, and they went through their first 7 years of life being electroshocked, tortured, as my mother said, electroshocking the fetus in vitro is how they start to warp the synaptic pathways of an Illuminati child.
They can electroshock the fetus?
Yes, they shock the mother.
On the stomach, on the belly?
Yes. And shock the baby. My mother says it hurts like an SOB.
But why do they want to do that? Why do you think they're actually doing that, and actually to a larger number than we think?
You'd have to go into ancient mythology, like the Babylonian stuff that Zecharia Sitchin has written about. And there's so many, like the Mayan codexes talk about some things from, shall we say, pre-Diluvian times. But the main thing with my family, you asked me how do I know I was Illuminati, was basically my mother hung out with the DuPont family. And they were on the Council of 13. And as far as I know, they still are. In the 20s, they were in a rocky position, and they may have actually been taken off the Council of 13, but fortunately, one of the heirs of the family got their financial and their satanic house in order, and so they remained on the council. But let me say this. When my uncle died, when my grandfather died in Palmyra, New Jersey, very small town on the Delaware River, 20 miles away from Philadelphia, maybe, if that. When he died, 300 people came from Virginia, Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland. 300 people the townspeople had never seen before. Now, if you're being buried and you're just a small town insurance salesman and everybody knows you in town, how come people from Ohio drove 300 plus miles to be at your funeral? I'll tell you why. He was an Illuminati chieftain. I'm sure he was good for human trafficking, good for the pedophile ritual abuse and torture. He served the elite well. He served the Satanists well. When I go into the history of my family, supposedly they joined the Illuminati in the 1720s, and 3 brothers came over to America during the quote-unquote potato famine, which was nothing more than a British starvation policy. The history there is a total lie. But 3 brothers came over. John, Edwin, and I don't know the other one's name. But Edwin went to Elmira, John went to Philadelphia, and the 3rd brother went to Chicago. And all 3 of them started Illuminati covens and worked for the Illuminati.
And it was called the Illuminati. And you also heard that expression as a child, did you?
Yes. They've been calling themselves Illuminati. What Adam Weishaupt was a reorganization of their methodology and where they were going. Adam Weishaupt, announced to the world the new phase, modern phase of the Illuminati dark occult, the cult of Molech, that now they were going into their worldwide revolution phase. And of course, we got the American and French revolutions.
So please describe Satanism and what is happening at a satanic ritual. What happened to you?
Well, I went through many rituals. Went through one ritual where my consciousness, there was about half circle of 8 adults. I was about 5 years old. Half circle of 8 adults standing in front of me. And they wanted to bounce me out of this reality and show me the real truth of where we are.
And how could they do that?
Energetically, and this is something that's just being discovered, and if you match the frequency, then you can go to where that frequency is. And
can they measure that frequency?
They seem to know how to take a consciousness and bounce them to a frequency where you'll be on a planet and you'll be looking at 2.5 light blue glowing pyramids on a rolling hillside with giant black onyx boulders underneath them. The pyramids appear to be about 350 feet high. The sky is black like the Matrix movie, except there's no lightning in it. And the only light is coming off the light blue pyramids that are glowing like light UN blue. Above that scene are a malevolent spirit, which what comes into your mind is the Watchers. The Watchers. And I was told in Illuminati history that our planet was accidentally destroyed by a higher race of beings. And they built these blue pyramids, holodeck, virtual reality universe, so that our spirits could have life again and live as normal a life as possible due to the fact that our planet, which our spirits were attached to, was utterly inhabitable.
Would that be Earth as we know it?
Yes. And I believe that the spirit of the goddess is in the blue pyramid.
Was it some kind of illusion? What was it, do you think?
No, I mean, when this happens, my parents talked about this ritual and talked about this reality being a construct, a simulacra.
Simulation.
I remember going to Little League, and they were having a discussion in the front seat talking about the blue pyramids and that this isn't real. And I interjected, yes, it is. Of course it's real. And they looked at me and shook their heads and said, no, it isn't.
About Earth, your real life, that it was not real.
The planet, I can't really say what planet I was on, but I believe that that was the planet Earth, or the planet that our consciousnesses are attached to. But they bounced me out. I could not move my vision left or right. All I could perceive were 2.5 of these equilateral pyramids and a malevolent spirit hovering over the scene. There being no vegetation and an extremely dark, low sky. Almost like you were in a cave. I bounced back into my body, and the half circle of 8 people in the cult were laughing at me because they could tell my consciousness bounced out, because not everybody can do it. And my mother couldn't do it, but my father did do it. He had seen the blue pyramids. But I want to mention this, that I had it happen a second time to me when I was meditating in 2006 after I woke up to my mind control and broke my programming. So I tend to think that it's something that the one true God, the Father of all, wants me to tell people, that this is a consciousness-driven collective consensus reality. And if we clean up the 44 million bits of information that come out of a human being to the divine field, if we clean that up to a broadcast of love, freedom, private property, free expression, creativity, sharing and caring, you know, human stuff, the way it used to be in the golden age. We're going to, so many physicists say, we are in a thought-driven collective consensus reality. Physicists, if you just study, just punch into Google consensus reality and see how many YouTubes you get on consensus reality. You're going to get a lot of information on it. It's well known that this is a construct. The field we live in, the morphogenic field, is made up out of 52 waveforms. This is known by physicists. It's almost infinitely dense. The density of this field is to the 29th power. That's 29 zeros. How can I wave my hand in density like that? I can't, but I can think I am. You need that kind of density if you're going to put an entire universe inside a couple 350-foot equilateral pyramids. Don't you think? Almost infinite density. Not only that, in this morphogenic field is almost infinite energy. And Nikola Tesla and other honest physicists like Nassim Haramein will tell you that. My grandfather dying and 300 people coming to his funeral, I remember my aunt telling me about that, was that there was a shock in the Palmyra community. Like, who are all these people? And my family said, well, they were past business associates of my grandfather.
What was your grandfather's work? What did he do?
He was an insurance salesman. Just a small town insurance salesman. No, he was an Illuminati chieftain. I don't know whether he was running drugs or kids or whatever. My grandmother was the principal of the Palmyra High School. So, Illuminati, both my parents were teachers. The Illuminati love academia. They love anything where they can shape the minds and cultural mores of the population. So they love teaching, they love religion, and of course they love entertainment and media. And they place their small amount of people in key positions of power in those power structures.
So talk more about what happened to you as a child. You mentioned this situation where they bounced your consciousness and you came to this strange dark world with the blue pyramids. But what else happened to you? This started, you said, already when you were in your mother's womb.
Yes, my mother talked about shocking the fetus in vitro with a high voltage DC current. That's what they used. I was hit with car battery electroshock paddles for, I have one memory where I was strapped down to a table and I think they tortured me for 18 hours straight.
Really?
And I was begging to die in my mind. I was begging God to kill me.
How can you stand something like that? How can you go through it? What happens physically and emotionally? It must be so terrifying.
They have a thing called alters where they traumatize you and then your psyche breaks off. It's almost like facets on a gemstone. And these alters actually become personalities. Individualized personalities inside the person. So you have a multiple personality disorder. So what they like to do when they go to torture you or bring you into blood rituals is they like to drug you a certain way to put you in trance. And they also like to hypnotize you.
What kind of drugs do they use on children?
Hallucinogens. One of their favorite dark occult drugs is a plant called gypsum weed, which it has scopolamine in it and some other really nasty mind control drugs. Fritz Springmeier, who wrote the book, How to Create a Perfectly Undetectable Mind Control Slave. If you want to know more about the Illuminati cult, who they are, and what they do to children, and how they program people, then Fritz Springmeier is an author you have to look at.
In terms of the sexual abuse that we always hear about happening. We always hear, especially, that it's happening to girls who is under Project Monarch programming as well. And there are some very famous ladies we've heard about for a long time who's been out there in the, at least in the alternative field, talking about it. People like Kathy O'Brien, Bryce Taylor, Arizona Wilder, and others. But not that many men, actually. So therefore you stand out a little bit. So please talk about what they actually do to boys, and is it different being a girl and a boy who is under this horrendous mind control enslavement?
Oh, no. In fact, I know that at least one of my alter personalities, I was programmed to be a homosexual.
And you're not that in your, let's say, in your ordinary state of mind?
No, of course not. People have to realize you come in here for experiences. Right now, we have an interdimensional invasion of our Disneyland, so to speak, of our holodeck. We have to get rid of this spiritual negative invasion. And the only way we can do it is to get back to higher consciousness ourselves. This is our holodeck, not the reptilians, not the insectoids, not the gray aliens, not the booger people from Planet Kleenex. This is our space.
All right.
It was built for us. We rule here. That's why Christ said, "Know ye not that you are gods?" We are co-creators with the divine spirit.
So why are they sexually abusing children, the Satanists? You were exposed to this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the first memory I have in my life after I was born was my father forcing me to fellitate him in the cradle while my mother stood behind him and looked at me with sheer and utter hate.
You mean oral sex on a baby?
Yes, my father forcing me to perform oral sex, and I was in the cradle.
And your mother was looking at this, watching?
Yes, she was directly over his shoulder. She was looking with total hatred.
Why did she allow it?
Because she is a Satanist, and that's what they do to their children to warp the synaptic pathways.
But was she looking at your father with hate or at you?
Oh, at me.
At you?
Yes, because one of the things a parent, a couple raising a child in cult, you have to put your children through horrific torture and rituals constantly.
And they enjoy doing that?
Their devil spirits that were attached to them definitely enjoyed it.
And did your mother also abuse you sexually?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it did not have anything to do with sexual orientation?
My father was raped and tortured by his father. Well, I mean, I could see someone developing homosexual tendencies from being homosexually abused. That's all I'm saying.
It's very important also to stress and to say that being a homosexual in one way or the other has nothing to do with being a pedophile.
Oh, in Philadelphia in the 1970s, the homosexual community in the tri-state area decided to move to Philadelphia and start a cultural renaissance due to the fact that the industries had left. Philadelphia owes a huge debt of gratitude to the homosexual community for rebuilding this city after the deindustrialization. All I can say is most of the homosexuals that I've worked with and for, a lot of them are more conservative than Donald Trump. People don't know that, but it's the truth. They're real straight shooters. I mean, the only thing different about them from the societal norms is their homosexual sexual orientation. So anyway, I want to get back to what my mother and father were doing to me in the cradle. My mother is manifesting her devil spirit. When you join cult, a entity from the other dimension is put upon you, attached to you, probably in the lower spine, that is with you for life.
Is that what people talk about when they talk about having like a Kundalini experience?
Well, actually, the cult does a lot of Kundalini blocking magic when it comes to the spinal cord and stuff. They don't want people waking up to their higher selves. They want people in the R complex under the control of the other dimensional entity. Now, they don't want higher consciousness Kundalini energy. No. Although some dark occultists, all I can say is there are 5,000 types of Christianity. Well, there are many different types of dark occult.
That's also important to say.
But the cult of Molech, that's on top.
That's one of the higher ranking
Molech rules.
Satanists' orders or what?
Yeah, when you get down to brass tacks, I mean, Bohemian Grove tells you who's in control. They tell you who's running the show.
So they were putting a demon spirit into your spine.
Well, I had one, shall I say, energy consciousness blocking devices placed in my spine etherically. I know that. Because I've done a lot of EFT. I've worked with a lot of shamans and people who work with SRA victims. And there's a lot of deprogramming knowledge that's being shared between the SRA community.
SRA is for satanic ritual abuse.
Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of spirit is that going into the body through the spine? Is that what you would call an archon?
Well, from what I can tell, there's a lot, it's a huge hierarchy, and some of it is, I mean, if you go down low, you've got short grays, then reptilians, then insectoids, and then, you have this whole Anunnaki god watchers kind of thing, the ancient ones.
How about the Nordics?
My opinion on them is kind of neutral.
Why?
Anybody that can sit back and watch what's going on in this planet with 2/3 of the human race living in dirt floor housing without running water, without electricity. Supposedly there are Nordic underground cities and Shangri-Las, and the same with other ETs. I'm just saying that you wouldn't find me not trying to help. That's all. So I figure that they like to watch, but they don't do much to help. Maybe they are, but I don't know.
Maybe all the Nordics are not just all good, as some people suggest.
Well, this is the problem, because Don Croft, who started the Organite Revolution in America and to the world, really, where gifting orgonite under the cell towers and in waterways is helping the life force energy make a comeback on the planet, dissipate a lot of this dark satanic energy. And Don Croft was in Florida gifting orgonite, and he ran across non-predatory reptilians, and they talked to him.
Like good reptilians, positive reptilians?
They were good reptilians, and there's also Ken Rolla has had a lifetime, he lives in Florida, a lifetime of contact with positive reptilians.
In what way did he have contact with them? Physically?
Face to face, talking to them.
He met them?
Yes. Ken Rolla and Don Croft.
They can manifest on this three-dimensional level?
Oh, absolutely.
So they're physical?
Yes, they are.
So...
Well, we're physical, and we also have a spiritual component.
So let's say, so the aliens, we're talking about aliens, extraterrestrials, and interdimensionals here, right?
Well, there's interdimensionals.
Yes.
There's ETs from our dimension. America says 52. Russia says 56. You know, Nikola Tesla said there were 24 dimensions. We were always taught as children it's a multi-dimensional universe, and that the devil spirits and the reptilians come from a different dimension than ours.
Is that the fourth dimension or the fifth or where?
I don't know. Tesla says that the fifth dimension, and we're like the first, according to Tesla.
The first dimension. We are in the first, not the third?
That's what Tesla said. I don't mean that we're just like a point. When I say dimension, I'm saying reality. Frequency that makes up an entire universe. If you have the right frequency, like everything that we experience here in our collective consensus reality, basically has to have a base frequency, kind of like a lattice to set this whole thing up. So why couldn't you change the dial a little bit and have somewhat of the same experience but a different channel?
So you believe that there is an alien existence also on planet Earth and in many other dimensions, and you just mentioned some of them, and even people who have seen them and met them.
Absolutely.
But please talk about some of those races then. How do you know for sure, or how certain are you that all of what people are talking about these many races, that it's actually true?
Well, I look back on what I went through, and I was in the presence of short gray aliens.
You were?
Oh, absolutely. My whole family got abducted when we were young.
Oh, please take us through that.
Well, according to Dr. David Jacobs, who's written 4 books on this and is the world's foremost investigator of the short gray alien phenomenon, they've been here for about 150 years, and they are genetically sampling 5% of the human race population per year. And they have generational genetic sampling programs.
But a lot of people say that the Greys are biological robots.
The Greys are, in my estimation, evil robots. They're evil scientific robots.
Clones?
Well, they're cold-blooded. They don't care about anything or how much pain they cause. And they're liars. And they raped my mother one time, and she didn't like that too much.
Well, you wouldn't, would you? That is...
Oh, I thought it was funny, my mother complaining about it when she was a child murderer, pedophile, and mind controller. But when her rights were abused, oh.
Then it was a different story.
Yeah, how about that for cognitive dissonance?
That is extraordinary. I mean, please elaborate.
I got abducted with the family and by myself.
Taken to where? Into a UFO?
Yeah. I've seen the dark side of the moon.
You have?
Yes.
What is on the dark side of the moon?
Well, what I perceived, looking out of the window of the spaceship, this is when I was abducted by myself when I was about 12 years old. And we whipped around the dark side of the moon, the light side of the moon, and the dark side was covered with buildings. It was just everywhere. There were glowing buildings.
Why do you think we never see the dark side of the moon? Why is only one side visible to us on Earth?
The moon was towed in here by the controlling gods, and it serves a purpose for them. It's a base for them to work on us. And I was remote viewing at 3 years old, and I was told to look at the moon. And they wanted to know, the Illuminati in my cult wanted to know what the aliens were doing. And I was particularly told to look for a mile square box with a pyramid of poles above it. And that is the soul catcher that the aliens have set up. And when we die, our souls are caught on the moon and we're reprocessed.
So that is what people are saying is a reincarnation soul trap.
Yes.
And that is why they keep recycling human souls to go back to the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Who told you this, and how old were you when you had this information?
Well, I was doing remote viewing on the moon when I was 3.
After all your memories came back, you remember that you were actually able to do remote viewing at age 3. That must have been part of your mind-controlled programming.
Yes. And my father has spoken to me telepathically twice that I remember. Just like his voice was right in my head. So the levels of ability that human beings have and what we're taught we have, the cult knows some things that they're suppressing in our ability. My father can kill sending energy at someone, which causes them to have an aneurysm. To my knowledge, he's killed 3 people that way, at least.
That sounds so scary.
I'm just saying that we have a lot of abilities that the high priesthood have taken away from us and reserved for themselves.
But a lot of people in the spiritual field, they talk about that we have guardian angels to protect us as well, or some kind of guardians.
Well, we have the consciousness of the Father of all. And whether you're in a holodeck or in a whatever dimension you're in, the Father of all, the intelligent quantum particle that is love, is aware of you and aware of your spirit and your mind. And this is where we need to go. We need to honor the fountain of natural law and stop being lawless and irresponsible, and basically stop following thieves and murderers and pedophiles. Because if you look at who is controlling the governments and the religions and the banks, whatever, you will see pedophiles, murderers, and thieves. This is not the consciousness of most people. This is an alien consciousness. As David Icke said, they gave us their mind. In the programmable state, they gave us a solipsistic mind of selfishness and lack of empathy.
But don't you think it's very easy not to take responsibility for those horrible actions by saying it's aliens behind these terrible things, and pedophilia and whatever is going on, and even Satanism? Maybe it's part of the human psyche if you look at psychopaths.
Well, they have a system in the old religion. I mean, my mother traces her Satanic lineage back 3,000 years to the Amalekite people written about in the Old Testament. And the Amalekite fought the Israelis in the Old Testament. By the 1st century, the Amalekite moved to Turkey in Phrygia, stayed there for quite a while. And St. Paul, in one of his journeys, was told not to go to Phrygia by an angel.
But now we're talking about the history of the Bible. But don't you think that's just a story written in, let's say, in code?
Well, some of it is in code, and some of it is blatantly true, and some of it is blatantly misleading. And what you have to do is learn personally how to meditate, how to pray, and take the good scriptures about the grace and love of the divine and get that into your heart and mind and walk out on that and take baby steps in reclaiming your birthright of higher consciousness. And all I have to say is, I mean, if you look at the history of Christianity, the 35 books of canon were thrown in the trash in 325 AD by the Emperor Constantine, and the Piso family rewrote the entire Word of God.
But who do you think originally wrote the Word of God? God?
This is a very interesting question, but I'll answer you this. If the average IQ of a human being today is around 80, do you really think that it's rocket science to live a good life and to have connection with Source and to be loving and creative and caring? No, it's not rocket science, is it? It can't be that technical. So when you look at all these scriptures, you wonder, oh, gee, I have an entire lifetime of study to do. And I have to look at the Greek and the Hebrew of the originals. And there's 41,000 changes just to the 1611 King James Version of the Bible. Oh, all the time I'm going to have to spend to figure this out. It's not like that. Real spirituality is making a commitment to honesty, a commitment to empathy and love. Once you declare yourself a vehicle of life rather than theft, the universe will teach you what you want to know.
But the Bible and other holy books talk a lot about guilt and shame, and there's a lot of fear-mongering, and you have to be very fearful to God.
Well, you better believe there's a lot of fear-mongering. You better fear your pedophile priest.
But that's not what they're talking about. They're of course condemning that. even though it's still happening, even what we are hearing about.
Bishops, the Catholic bishops, like 2 months ago, wanted to have an inquiry into the church pedophilia.
But they're certainly not preaching the word of the Bible, huh? When they do things like that.
Oh, and the Pope forbade it. He forbade it. You ought to hear what Leo Zagami is talking about with the church right now. You're going to hate me for saying this if you're, locked into hardcore fundamentalist Christianity, but I don't think Jesus Christ is going to throw people in hell for being homosexual. And that's the way I feel about it. Because the creator of the universe is more concerned about the character and content of what you are doing with your life. Are you hurting people? Are you stealing? Are you manipulating?
But when you're saying that, do you also say that you think that Jesus was a real person in the way that we've been told?
I don't know. It's interesting. A lot of people say, oh, I talk to Jesus every day. Well, is that his name? The letter J wasn't invented until the 13th century AD. So, do you really know what you're talking about? I'm saying to people, keep it simple, keep it pure. First things first, no lying. Learn to meditate. Learn about your physiology.
There was an alternative scientist who said, if people can believe in religion even to this day, they can believe in anything. And also everything that is actually being portrayed as being the real story and the truth of our reality through the media and everything else.
What is reality? It's basically perception. We live in a 52 waveform sea of energy that can become anything, that can manifest anything. That's why know ye not that you are gods. We have been programmed to be negative because that negative human energy from our spirit and emotion feeds the demons. It's called loosh. We have been set up as a race of cattle for negative spiritual energy. We have to stop being cattle for the Satanists and the Luciferians and go back to being who we were meant to be, which is the high priests and priestesses of God. There's a lot of misinformation in ancient scripture, but there's a lot of truth. You have to critically think. You have to work at your life. You have to work at your consciousness. You have to know the difference between conscious mind and subconscious.
Today, it seems that it's still very controversial to even doubt or ask the question if certain religions are true and if God exists in the way we've been told and if Jesus was a real person, or, well, you can mention some of the other religions as well and their prophets.
We have been through this, according to my mother and father, 5 to 7 worldwide ages that ended in cataclysm, and we went back to pointy stick world. Okay? We get hit with an asteroid, 700 megatons, we're going back to pointy stick world. Okay? No more computers, no more electricity. Most people don't know how to hunt, fish. I mean, see ya.
Do you think that could happen again?
Absolutely. I mean, there are theories that every 13,000 years, Earth goes through a cataclysm that knocks the entire planet. Every 13,000 years.
That can happen again.
Yes. And because we live in a conscious holodeck, what we believe and what we fear and what we love, we are sending that signal out to the universe. If you know what I mean, out to the morphogenic field. I mean, you'd have to study Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza's work when it comes to how to play the miracle game. The short grays call the reality that the human race is in right now the miracle game.
But do you think it's the Greys that call them that? Don't you? Some people say they're just biological robots. They were genetically created.
Well, I just know that not pleasant, and they really didn't have any love. They were very scientific, and they had an agenda that was in alignment and harmony with the New World Order.
And do you remember seeing these creatures as a child?
Oh, absolutely.
What did they do to you?
I can't remember a lot of the genetic experiments, but I do remember, you know, being paralyzed on a exam table and looking over and seeing my father out of my peripheral vision. And he was very upset and he was crying and he was saying, "What are you doing to my son?" And he was totally freaked out.
Oh, then suddenly he had empathy for you.
Well, I mean, they might have been operating on my brain, putting implants in. They've been known to pull people's eyes out of their sockets and put implants in and do surgeries. So, you know, I'm sure what he was looking at was not too pleasant.
Do you think that these memories can be part of what some have called false memories syndrome?
Glad you mentioned that. The two professors from University of Pennsylvania that began the false memory syndrome, the whole thing, I forget what their names are now. It's from the Satanic Panic in the 1980s. And these two University of Pennsylvania professors came up with the theory of the false memory.
So they came up with that. It wasn't something, it's not something that is real.
They invented it to you know, put down all the people that were going to psychiatric facilities and psychologists and saying that they had been satanically cult abused.
In order to cover it up.
In order to discredit the witnesses that were coming forth.
Mm-hmm.
And
wow.
These two psychologists were found out to have written pro-pedophilia articles in a Danish pedophile magazine.
How terrible.
And so pedophilia is a sacrament to the old religion, to the dark occult.
How long did you yourself experience all this pedophilia in your life as a child?
Up until I fully rebelled at 7 years old.
You fully rebelled at 7 years old?
Yes.
You could manage to do that?
Yes, I was getting my third brainwave pattern, and they had raped my best friend in first grade so horrifically, he went septic and died. His name was Brandon Ploner. And I went to some Christians down the street on Little Lane because my parents hated them. and they weren't cult. Arden kept about 10% of the population non-cult, so people could practice their personas of being normal people. And I went to this man and his wife and said what happened to Brandon Ploner, that he's dead, where I thought the body was buried. The other people I'd seen murdered, where I thought their bodies were.
You saw them being murdered?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that part of the ritual, the satanic ritual?
Yeah, it's traumatic abuse.
How much did you see that? What happened to the children? Why wasn't it reported to the police?
Well, that's funny. Because when I went to these Christians down the street over the death of my friend, Brandon Ploner, they went to the police. And the police said, "Oh, we know what's going on in Arden, but we can't help you." The police in the 1930s in Delaware tried to shut down the cult in Arden. 3 police were quickly killed, and the cult got a message to the police, "Do you want some more?" And that was the end of that. The police have always been afraid of the cult in Arden. And they understand that the DuPont family, which owns the state, has a private army and private hitmen, and they control all the judges and all the newspapers and politicians. It is a dark occult civilization on this planet, built on raw violence.
Why do you think that is?
Basically because people will not make the commitment unto death to fight these people. When my neighbor went to the police and said, "You got to help this kid. They're murdering children in Arden." The police said, "Oh, we know what's going on there, but we can't help." The media is controlled by the dark occult, owned by the dark occult. The same with the legal system. And what I'm saying is, some of it is bribery, some of it is coercion of violence being instigated against people. But I've made a commitment unto death.
Nothing has ever happened to you. Do you fear that anything could happen when you're talking about all of these things and revealing these dark secrets?
I had an incident around the time that I tried to get the police involved in Arden. And there was an intervention, and they wanted to kill me, but the higher dimensional entities would not let that happen. And so here I am, 55 years later, telling the tale.
So what happened at that time when they tried to, take you out or stop you, or?
My father was saying to Buzzware, "Let's just kill him and throw his body in the woods."
You?
Yes. A voice said in my head, "Look behind you." And I could tell that there were 2 entities behind me. I could feel their presence. And I was disgusted because I had heard from the neighbors down the street that the police would not help. And I was like, "Go ahead and kill me. I'm sick of this."
And you were in a house, or how old were you at the time?
No, it was at the Church of the Marquis of Hell underneath the Candlelight Dinner Theater in Arden. I was 7 years old.
Why do you think all of this satanic ritual abuse and mind control is happening to children specifically?
That's the next generation of control. They'll lose some in murder, accidentally kill them in torturing them. There's some that they're just going to have to kill because their consciousnesses will not obey the dark side.
Please describe Project Monarch.
Dark Occult Village started in 1900 along with Rose Valley, Pennsylvania. They're each situated on either side of the Arcadian ley line, which is a ley line that goes all the way across the planet. It's one of the major ley lines. It goes through London, New York, Boston. And this ley line, by situating two dark occult, human sacrificing, child torturing, ritual abuse villages during satanic ceremonies, they can pour the energy into the ley line and help keep the human race energetically in Stockholm Syndrome.
So it goes all the way around the ley line, around the earth, or what?
Yes, they know how to manipulate the energy left over. My mother said the energy field is affected by human beings over the centuries, mound builders, things like that in ancient times, megalithic structures. And this energy grid, this geomantic energy grid, the dark occultists, old religion, know how to manipulate. And that's why 95% of our genetic expression is shut off. We are dumbed down and traumatized to the point of really we're just the shadow of what we're capable of.
So that people can be controlled.
It's all about producing a society of slaves so that the people who know don't have to work and they feed off of the cattle, the tax slaves.
So it's about being tax slaves.
We're cattle to the elite. We're farm animals to take money from and to support their lavish lifestyle.
So it's organized slavery, not the old-fashioned way of having slaves.
John Lamb Lash, the Gnostic scholar, who has written an excellent book about the Gnostic time of Christ mystery schools that were around the Mediterranean. And on the mystery schools at that time, most of them had a sign, "Know thyself." And they taught everything at these temples, human consciousness, spirituality, arts, mathematics, science. And so what the Council of Nicaea did was basically turn Christianity on its head and shut down all the mystery schools so that people didn't know true history and true psychology. And we've been in the dark ever since then.
What role did Aleister Crowley play in all of this?
There is an institution by the name of Tavistock Institute in London. The Tavistock Institute for Human Relations is the #1 social engineering organization. And they write the white papers along with the Rand Corporation, Carnegie Mellon Institute, Ford Foundation, and they steer society through social norms, through culture. The Beatles, the Rolling Stones, David Bowie, all were Tavistock Institute cultural manipulators.
Really? Do you think so?
I know so.
How did you get this information?
The book Tavistock Institute for Human Relations by Dr. John Coleman, a book that is out of print now. Daniel Estelin, who is famous for his work on the Bilderberg Group, has recently written a new book on Tavistock Institute. And this is something people have to understand. You see these satanic rituals at the Super Bowl halftime show. What you don't understand, through the use of symbols, word magic, and of course, cultural indoctrination, we are given the mind of slavery. We are given a mind of fear.
But getting back to Monarch, that's a butterfly, right? What's the symbolism behind that? Why is it called Monarch, what you went through?
When they electroshock you severely with direct electric current in high voltages with a cattle prod or with a car battery or with a psychiatric paddles placed to the skull, the consciousness will have a momentarily have a out-of-body experience, like a butterfly floating above the person. And that's where they got the Monarch out of.
So that was, you went through that a lot, did you?
They gave me permanent brain damage after I went to the Christians down the street for Brandon Ploner's murder. They took me to the CIA psychologist that was monitoring my Monarch mind control. And basically, he shocked me until I didn't even know my name.
So they actually gave you permanent brain damage?
Yes, I suffered from petit mal seizures, epileptic seizures, all my life.
Terrible. And in what other way has it affected you?
Well, I mean, having multiple personality disorder, I mean, it's a mess. My life was a mess.
Do you still experience going into some of these altars?
No, because I've used emotional freedom technique and matrix re-imprinting with EFT to destroy the remnants of the programs that are been instituted into me through satanic ritual.
So you can actually be deprogrammed?
Yes, I've deprogrammed myself using the techniques that other SRA people have taught me and using EFT.
So would you consider yourself to be fully deprogrammed today?
I'd say I'm at least 80%.
Do you remember everything that happened to you as a child and growing up?
No, I definitely, because with severe trauma, when you're in trance or hypnotized, you have massive amnesic barriers around that trauma. And they use that to, you have a pretend life where your family's normal, and then you have the real life of your satanic family.
Which in your case was the same family, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But after I got my brain fried by Gordon Pizer, they put me through 4 months of extremely intense slave programming because they knew my consciousness would never stop fighting them.
And what did they do to you specifically?
Locked me in boxes, forced cannibalism, torture.
Forced cannibalism?
Yes.
Eat another human being's flesh?
Yes.
And you...
Well, there was nothing I could do. It's either that or starve to death.
You witnessed killings as well?
Yes.
Did you also take part in any?
I don't have any memories of actually killing another child or an animal. I tend to think, because I'm friends with Sandra Fact, who is a SRA therapist in Canada, and she has a client who grew up in a Satanic family in Canada, in Ontario, and they tried to get him to stab babies on the altar and things like that, and he refused. And I think, although I cannot remember, I have no memories of them succeeding in getting me to engage in such activity. And my mother said to me one time, "Boy, they really broke the mold when they made you." And that I was just nothing like my family. Mm-hmm. My consciousness was totally on the other side. And I just want to say that, you know, as far as spirituality goes, I've spent 19 years trying to figure all this out. When I got triggered by that witch, and I had a flood of memories of my abuse and my real family, I was so angry, I wanted to kill my father. My mother had already passed. And I grabbed a hold of myself and I said, "Nah, don't do it. Even though it would be a righteous thing to do, it's what they would want you to do. Find out everything you can about this and try to help people that have gone through it themselves, and try to spend the rest of your life making sure it doesn't happen to anyone else." And I've tried to be true to that commitment I made 19 years ago.
Right. So can boys also be used as
beta kitten programming?
Beta kitten?
Sex programming. No, you can, either gender it can be used for. There are many, many. If you have an altar which can be accessed by certain phrases or hand signals, you'll go into that altar, and however that's been programmed, if that altar has been programmed to be a homosexual, a male homosexual party favor, well, then that's the way you're going to act.
So actually, through mind control, you can change by being compartmentalized in your mind. You can change your personality, but also your sexuality.
Oh, absolutely.
They can create that in a person's mind.
Absolutely. In fact, scientists have found out that people who have deep programming, trauma-based programming like this, one alter or one personality will have blue eyes and another personality will have green eyes.
So they change the eye color?
Mm-hmm. We are genetically a lot more than what we're manifesting. And with epigenetics, our thoughts, our frequency, like the biggest frequency broadcaster and receiver on the planet is the human mind and heart. And this is the one thing the elite do not want us to know. Because if they knew, if we knew that we broadcasted 44 million bits of information a second into the collective consciousness field, and that subconscious broadcast and conscious mind broadcast was creating the reality we are experiencing, a holodeck set up by benign, benevolent beings to replace our world, which they accidentally destroyed. And then my mother said there was a spiritual attack into the blue pyramids, and voila, we have what we have today.
We just talked about that sex programming, the beta kitten, and there's a famous, rather famous book by a Bryce Taylor, who wrote a book called Thanks for the Memories. And before that, Kathy O'Brien wrote Transformation of America. Do you know these two ladies who went through these mind control?
I've talked to Kathy O'Brien. She came to Free Your Mind too, and I was a speaker there. And I met her and Mark Phillips. And I've read Transformation of America and her second book. I have not read her third book on deprogramming. I have my own methodology I'm happy with, but I should read that book someday. I have a lot of books to read still. But I just want to say that there was an incident with my mother. She was talking about a man in the bayous of Louisiana who was killing people to chop their hands off for what the old religion calls holy hands. So when you have a murder victim who has been horrifically murdered and their hands are chopped off, they can use these hands as energetic devices. And Kathy O'Brien was married to that man in the bayou that my mother talked to me about.
When she was still under mind control.
Oh, absolutely.
That was before she met Mark Phillips, who rescued her, as she says.
But the people in Transformation of America, like Robert Byrd, Governor Dick Thornburgh, Bob Hope, I mean, when you grow up in a cult family and your parents see a television program or a newspaper article about someone and they're in the Illuminati, they tend to manifest and chuckle to themselves like, yes, they're on the winning team.
But both Kathy O'Brien and Bryce Taylor are mentioning a lot of really, really famous names. Politicians, stars, you name it, movers and shakers. People that we all know. Do you think you can validate that their stories are true? Do you think that these things actually happened?
Absolutely, because my father said that Bob Hope was MI5. Okay? And if you're MI5 or if you're CIA, there's a good chance that you're old religion, dark occult.
And this was what Bryce Taylor talked about. She's not on the scene anymore. We don't hear anything about her anymore. What do you think happened to her since she's not out there talking about all of this, which you're talking about, Kathy O'Brien has been talking about for all this time? Do you think she's gone back to the mind control programming, or what do you think happened to her?
I sincerely doubt that, due to the fact that there's people like Fiona Barrett, there's people like myself, because one of the main reasons I'm doing what I'm doing is to tell the secondary psychopaths of the old religion, the non-bloodline DuPonts and Rockefellers that are being used by this old religion system. Stop raping children. Stop torturing children. Walk away from the cult, because they're not going to pay you for your service to poison the morphogenic field. They mean to kill you with the Patriots. And there's EFT, there's EMDR, and there are many different modalities to deprogram. And Kathy O'Brien has written a book based on deprogramming. And I'm saying to the cult, you can leave anytime you want because you've been thrown under the bus.
But you don't really mention anything about having had some evil, cruel experiences with any famous people, celebrities, or anything else. So you stand a little bit out from what they are talking about.
I think my mother and having met John DuPont, who later killed the wrestler Schultz, and then the DuPont family tried to seize control of his fortune, but the plot did not work. And John DuPont's lawyers maintained control of his fortune. When my mother did that to John DuPont, she used a hand hypnotic spinner that my father had that could put you in the deepest state of hypnosis with your subconscious wide open for programming in 5 seconds. And my mother programmed John DuPont and said to my father, the program does not kick in for 25 years. And 25 years later, almost to the day, John DuPont went crazy and murdered his friend, the wrestler Schultz.
So he was not originally programmed to be a mind-controlled, compartmentalized person. She just did that with this device, just like that?
Well, the thing is, the DuPont family, to my knowledge, is old religion, dark occult.
So he was already under mind control.
He was already generational Satanist, but there's many different levels to the program. Now, if you're an heir to the DuPont fortune, and you're supposed to be the head of the family and get a seat at the Council of 13, you're supposed to be programmed a certain way.
So maybe he was a little bit under my control.
Not slave programming, but master programming.
Master programming, okay.
But I have to say, David Icke points this out very, very well. If you look at an old picture of Guy de Rothschild, who owned Mouton Rothschild vineyards, his left eye droops, and the hemispherical change between the left side and right side of a person's face is well known that we're not totally symmetrical. But in someone who's been through serious trauma-based mind control, there can be massive differences between the right and left hemisphere of the face. And David Icke says the reason that Guy de Rothschild's left eye drooped was because of damage from trauma-based mind control.
I see. So it also happens on the very high levels.
Absolutely. Everyone goes through the torture.
And that was why your mother could trigger Mr. Dupont to actually go into this mind-controlled situation many years later.
He was already ripe for what I would consider secondary programming.
Because you're not able to do that with somebody who's never been exposed to mind control, right?
Well, I would think it would take a long time.
So what about Montauk? We've heard a lot about the Montauk Project and the Montauk boys as well.
Well, my mother said something definitely is going on there. It was well known in the upper echelons of Luciferians that they were doing some really important work at Montauk.
And that was way before it came out that actually things had taken place, supposedly, or people have talked about it.
She was mentioning that to me in the early 70s.
Right, which was way before. So talk also a moment about MK-Ultra, which of course is something that is known also to the public, which was this mind-controlled experiments done by the CIA. And they say that it supposedly were closed down in 1973. But maybe you have another take on that?
Well, I'm sure they changed the name. But I mean, if you look into what George Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush did to Kelly O'Brien, Kathy O'Brien's daughter, I mean, and you have to go to the Huntsville NASA mind control facility. There was a family that was darkly cult that lived next to us in Arden, Delaware, by the name of Chaikin. And the Chaikins got divorced, and the mother, who was a witch, moved her and her kids to Huntsville, Alabama, to work at the NASA mind control facility because she was a experienced Illuminati witch.
And she said that there was actually a mind control facility at NASA, because I don't think anybody else know anything about that.
I think it's been mentioned by some of the Eisenhower relatives also.
Uh-huh.
There are some Eisenhowers that are talking about the mind control in their family.
Right.
I'm not familiar with it. It's just people have told me that it's out there on the web.
Mm-hmm.
That one Eisenhower, daughter of Ike, or granddaughter,
Okay.
spent her life down at Huntsville, Alabama.
What is the significance of the planet Saturn?
Well, I was talking to one of the Lipstein's sons when I was about 8 years old. And I said to him, oh, we both worship the same God, meaning Father God. And he looked at me and said, no, we don't. I worship Saturn. And he became a dark occultist, by the way. He joined cult.
So what is the significance of Saturn?
Well, Saturn as a archetype is hierarchy, is total control. It's the god of the New World Order. It's the cube, right? It's the cube of Mecca. It's the cube you see rabbis wearing on their head.
Hexagon, hexagram.
Yes, octagon. Great YouTubes about octagon and the Swiss and the bankers and Freemasons in Switzerland, because basically the whole thing is being run by corporations. So
earlier on we talked about archons, and then you mentioned the reptilians, the greys, and the insectoids. But what is the difference between real aliens, if there is such a thing as real aliens that can take physical form or are physical, and the archons?
Good question. I know that from what I experienced, David Icke talks about the jinn or the demon race, and when the Marquis of Hell is summoned underneath the Candlelight Dinner Theater when I was a kid, he was the god for that particular cult in Rose Valley and Arden, and he commands a legion, 40 legions of demons. Anyway, when they summon him, he appears with a shout. He has snakes for hair, like a Medusa. They're very interesting. And he does this weird dance with his hands. I could not speak or communicate with him because I was not an adept.
Did you see him appear?
Oh, absolutely.
What was it, like a hologram?
I would say when you see Star Trek and the outline of the body looks like light and fluttering light, or as David Icke says, they're made of smokeless fire. So when you look at them, there's just energy, light and energy inside the shape of their body. Okay? But you don't see them other than this energy being.
So you don't see a face.
Yeah, you see a face, but it's almost like the skin is holding back what is moving light inside of this being.
So when Satanists are doing these rituals, they can actually summon the devil or whatever entity that may be.
Yes. It's all about, if you get the right frequency, that frequency will be matched up. And so they know how to develop the right frequency, because the greatest broadcaster and receiver of frequency is the human.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So they summon the devil or whatever it is. Is that an archon or what is it? It takes form. It's like an energy being, an energy body.
Well, it seems to have a consciousness, because obviously the adepts that have a demon attached to them, that are professional cult, you know, seem to be able to communicate with the Marquis of Hell.
The Marquis of Hell, is that what you call that being?
Yeah, his name was Andres, the Marquis of Hell. He has 40 legions of demons.
Really?
This is in many satanic books. But they have pictures of the Marquis of Hell which are not accurate.
So it's not in a more recent book by Anton Sander LaVey, right? It's not that kind of satanic Bible that was written as some kind of pop culture.
There's so much disinformation out there, and there are so many different levels of hierarchy and nonsense going on. The Illuminati love to lie to people. If someone is carrying a lie, they are disempowering themselves. And this is why EFT is very good, because you throw out a lot of things you're carrying around mentally and psychologically that are weighing you down and skewing your perception of reality. With these beings of light, these beings made out of smokeless fire, I know that my stepmother, said to me that there are three primary demons or demiurges that are running the show. Now, I could be wrong about that, but she was looking at the Pope doing a midnight Christmas Mass, and I was still under mind control, but she manifested her attached devil spirit looking at this program, and she laughed to herself and she said, there are three. And I've had other people tell me they've had an experience of running into three really beautiful angels that their vibe coming off them was completely sinister.
So what a lot of people think are angels are actually could be demons.
There's quite a bit of counterfeit information and spirituality. You have to know that if we had 5 to 7 worldwide ages before, I mean, a gold chain has been found in coal that's 300 million years old. So what are you telling me? Are you telling me a demon, or E.T. dropped his gold chain in a swamp 300 million years ago? Why have geodes been cut open to reveal almost an exact replica of a modern spark plug? Makes you wonder.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is we've been playing this game a long time, perhaps. But we need to get our lives down to core issues and down to core spirituality and philosophy. You can spend your entire life studying the Illuminati and the different foundations and the different cults and the different secret societies. What's that going to do for you? What is that going to do to energetically clean up the morphogenic field so the human race can break free of this Stockholm Syndrome, trauma-based mind control bondage? If each of us goes with EFT into our subconscious and takes out the supposistic, satanic mind control that's in our subconscious, it's called this is what John Lamb Lash calls it, the archontic mind parasite. Our enculturalization by our parents' religion schools built our subconscious from 1 to 7 years old. We as individuals did not build our own subconscious. It was given to us by our culture, a culture that is warmongering, baby raping, earth killing. A culture that is not loving, a culture that is destruction and pain. So write out what you want in your subconscious, write out what you don't want, do EFT tapping on it. There are books to read. My website, thecenterpath.weebly.com, has some links to Gary Craig's website to learn about EFT. I recommend some great books. I have my radio programs twice a week on Revolution Radio. So I'm doing what I can to educate people about who they really are, where they are, and what are the options for freedom. When you point a finger, you're pointing 3 back at yourself. And what I'm saying is, if it's a consensus reality, and it is, because the quantum physicists say it is, and if you really look at it, you go like, okay, this is the way it is. I mean, it's crazy. But if we change our minds, we manifest a different reality. I'm just simply saying that the only thing keeping the masters in power is a thought. We believe that we have to obey them.
So, Jay, what can we do when we have to leave the body? What happens when we die then? You talked about the reincarnation, karma wheel, soul trap happening on the moon, created by the archons. And how do we escape that? How do the human souls escape the matrix then?
There are some people on the web saying that the soul catcher on the moon exists, not just me talking about it, and that we're being recycled and put down in this mind-controlled world so that we produce loosh for the demons. There is an ancient scripture in Babylonian mythology that says that the rebel gods had their mouths sewn shut, and the only thing they could eat was negative human emotion and feeling.
Food for the archons.
These are the archons.
So how do we escape them? How do we escape that trap? How do we escape the matrix? Can we decide not to go into the white light?
We go back to source. We go back to love.
And can we decide that once we leave and maybe go to this tunnel of light? Or should we not go to this tunnel of light? What a lot of people have talked about happening when we die.
The people I read say the tunnel of light is the trap.
Right.
But I've also heard from my parents and Michael Tazarian, I don't know whether I'll go down the tunnel again to light, because I have seen, like on Star Trek, Voyager, there was an episode where they showed that the tunnel of light was actually an alien trap to sustain sustenance from a person's soul. Interesting that they would put that out there, because that's what Hollywood is. It's them telling you the truth in a sideways way in order to make you complicit in the abuse.
And just tell you that it's just fiction and ridiculous if you start believing in it.
The game simply is, are we going to be holistic and come together in the spirit of love, or are we going to continue to be satanic, individualistic, and selfish? Which then we seem to go down a rabbit hole of evil.
So how do we get out of the reincarnation soul trap?
Well, I'm not going down the tunnel next time, so we'll see where I end up. I'm hoping, even though that this planet is quarantined in the Blue Pyramid holodeck, I look at this as a consciousness school. Ultimate evil against ultimate good. I'm here to learn about good, to reform and grow my soul so I can get out of the karmic wheel.
So what is your best advice for people to do when they hear your story? A lot of people will be very, well, naturally shocked and maybe also a bit fearful about what is happening in the world. What is your best advice for people to do from now on?
My website has quite a few things on it, YouTube links and some of my other talks. And I tell you, if you don't know emotional freedom technique, if you don't know Dr. Bruce Lipton's work on eugenics, Dr. Joe Dispenza's work on meditation with the Heart Math Institute, where they have found that if you go to a 0.1 hertz energy field, you are in alignment and harmony with the universe, with the Father God, and your subconscious is wide open. And also you can ask the field for what you need. And this is what prayer used to teach until they changed the Book of Thomas and put the wrong prayer way to pray in the Book of John. But my advice is, who do you listen to? You got to take a step back. David Icke will get you down the road a little bit. It's an individual experience, so go with your own heart. But you're here to grow your soul. And you've been programmed negatively. So you got to start deprogramming and reprogramming. And one thing I'd like to say, a lot of people don't believe in God, but when you meditate properly and you have a breakthrough and you touch the intelligent, loving spirit of the field, the divine field that we all exist in, and it's bliss, and it's love, and it's joy and understanding. Well, that's a timeless spirit that ain't going anywhere. That spirit, that intelligence, controls the most minute quantum particle and can change universes in a split second. So the Illuminati want to fight with that? Good luck. You know, because I stood in the Marquee of Hell Church at like 5 years old, and these are people that raped and tortured me up until that point. And I stood there in the spirit of love, and I said, you're going against nature? You may be on top right now, but this isn't going to work out for you. You're crazy.
So Jay, please mention your website. How can people contact you or read more about all of your amazing information?
If you're a trauma mind control victim, you can send me an email and I'll try to talk to you and be a friend to you and help you through getting your life back together again. That's part of my ministry on this planet. My website is thecenterpath.weebly.com, WEEBLY.com.
Jay Parker, it's been absolutely mind-boggling, fascinating, outrageous, and extraordinary to hear your incredible story here. And I want to thank you very much for sharing that with our audience, and thank you for doing this interview with Age of Truth TV. We appreciate that very much, and good luck to you.
Well, thanks. Someday I'll organize in categories all the stuff I know and have been through and make it easy for people. But really, if you look within and bring what is within out, you will succeed in this place. That's what every avatar has always said. Go within, bring that out, and you will have the pearl of great price. You will understand who you are and where you are and what you are supposed to do. So I'll let you go. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Jay. We appreciate it as well. Take care, and I'll see you again at some other time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for watching Age of Truth TV. If you like our shows, you can support us by clicking onto our website, www.ageoftruth.tv. And please hit the bell, subscribe to our channel, and like our videos. Your support is very necessary and greatly appreciated. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.